Have you ever noticed that some people pull away the moment things start getting close, while others feel anxious the moment someone creates distance? Or maybe you've asked yourself questions like, why do I keep attracting the same kind of relationships? Why do I feel like I'm too much or not enough? What if I told you that the way we love, the way we connect, and even the way we react in relationships often begins long before adulthood? Today, we are talking about attachment styles and how our earliest relationships can shape the way we show up in love, friendship, and connection. Hey, I'm Uriel Zephyr, a licensed therapist, and this is Wapkutim Mapkutil. You are listening to me, I am listening to you. Attachment is the emotional bond we form with the people who care for us when we were young. When we are children, our survival depends on our caregivers. We rely on them for safety, comfort, and connection. Over time, our brain learns something very important. Is the world safe? Are my needs important? Can I rely on others when I need them? And the answers to those questions often shape the way we connect with people later in life. Not consciously, but emotionally and neurologically. If a child grows up with caregivers who are emotionally available, responsive, and consistent, the child often develops what we call secure attachment. But when caregivers are inconsistent, distant, unpredictable, or overwhelmed themselves, the child's nervous system adapts. Children are incredibly intelligent in this way. They develop strategies to survive emotionally because they're trying to stay connected. And those strategies eventually become what we call attachment styles. There are four main attachment styles, and I will walk you through them. First, we have secure attachment. People with secure attachment generally feel comfortable with closeness. They can express their needs, they can trust others, they can also tolerate independence. This usually develops when caregivers were consistently responsive. It doesn't mean that their childhood was perfect. It means the child felt seen and supported enough. People with anxious attachment often feel abandonment. They might feel like they need constant reassurance in relationships. Questions might come up like, do they still love me? Did I do something wrong? Why haven't they texted back? Their nervous system learned early that connection could be inconsistent. So they stay alert to sign of rejection. This often develops when caregivers were loving sometimes, but inconsistent at other times. Avoidant attachment looks very different. People with avoidant attachment often feel uncomfortable with emotional closeness. They might pull away when things become too intimate. Independence becomes their safety strategy. This often develops when children learn that expressing needs didn't lead to comfort. So the safest option was to rely on themselves. Disorganized attachment is often the most complex. Here, the caregiver is both a source of comfort and fear. So the nervous system becomes confused. The person may crave closeness, but also fear it at the same time. This can lead to relationships that feel intense, unpredictable, or overwhelming. Attachment doesn't only show up in romantic relationships. It shows up in friendships, family relationships, work dynamics, even the way we respond to conflict. For example, someone with anxious attachment may consistently seek reassurance. Someone with avoidant attachment may shut down during emotional conversations. And one dynamic I see very often is the anxious avoidant pairing. This pairing happens a lot. One partner wants closeness, the other partner pulls away. The more the anxious partner seeks reassurance, the more the avoidant partner may feel overwhelmed. And the more the avoidant partner withdraws, the more anxious the other partner becomes. Both people are reacting from their nervous system and not from a place of intentional harm. I want to take a moment for what I like to call a cultural corner. Because when we talk about attachment, we can't ignore culture. For many of us who grew up in Haitian families, love wasn't always expressed in the ways we see in Western psychology books. Many of our parents showed love through sacrifice. They worked hard, they provided, they made sure we had food, education, and opportunities. And in many cases, that was their way of saying, I love you. But emotional expression, things like saying, I love you, talking openly about feelings or validating emotions, wasn't always part of the culture. Sometimes, emotions were seen as weakness. Sometimes children were expected to be strong early. Sometimes, expressing needs could even be interpreted as disrespect. And when that happens, children learn something very quickly. They learn to adapt. Some children become very independent emotionally, which can later show up as avoidant attachment. Some children become very sensitive to connection and reassurance, which can later show up as anxious attachment. And again, this doesn't mean our caregivers didn't love us. Often, they were doing the best they could with what they had, while carrying their own unhealed wounds. Many of our parents and grandparents survive things we can't even imagine: political instability, migration, economic hardship. When survival is the focus, emotional conversations sometimes take a backseat. So when we start talking about attachment and healing, it's important to approach it with compassion. Compassion for ourselves, but also compassion for the generations before us. Because healing isn't about blaming our parents. Healing is about understanding the patterns we inherited and deciding what we want to do with them. And that's powerful because it means that as we heal, we are not just changing our own lives, we are also changing the emotional legacy that gets passed forward. Before we move into healing, I want to invite you into a short moment of reflection. Take a second and think about your relationships, not just romantic ones, but friendships, family, even work relationships. Ask yourself a few gentle questions. When someone you care about becomes distant, what usually happens inside of you? Do you start to feel anxious, wondering if you did something wrong or if they are pulling away from you? Or do you feel the opposite, like you want to create space, pull back, or handle things on your own? Maybe you notice both feelings at different times. Wanting closeness, but also feeling overwhelmed by it. None of these responses mean something is wrong with you. They are simply clues about how your nervous system learned to protect connection. So instead of judging yourself, just notice. Notice your patterns. Notice what feels familiar. Notice what comes up in your body when you think about closeness and distance in relationships. Because awareness is always the first step toward healing. The good news is this: attachment styles are not permanent identities. They are patterns, and patterns can change. Healing attachment often involves learning emotional awareness, building safe relationships, practicing expressing needs, regulating the nervous system. And sometimes healing happens in therapy, where someone experiences a consistent, safe relationship for the first time. I want to pause here for a moment because this is something I see very often in the therapy room. Part of my work as a therapist is not just talking about healing or giving tools. A lot of the healing actually happens through the relationship itself, the therapeutic relationship. Because when someone comes into therapy carrying wounds around attachment, many times they have never experienced what a secure relationship feels like. I often hear things like, I'm too much, or I feel like I'm going to overwhelm you, or you're probably going to get tired of me. Those beliefs usually didn't come out of nowhere. They come from experiences where their needs were ignored, dismissed, or where connection felt unsafe, or where connection felt unstable. So part of my role is to create a space where they can experience something different. A space that feels safe, a space where their emotions are allowed, a space where they are not too much. And I do that in many ways. By showing up consistently, by being present with them, by setting healthy boundaries when needed, by pointing out when their nervous system is reacting to something old that's showing up in the present moment. And over time, something powerful starts to happen. They begin to experience what it feels like to be in a relationship that is steady, respectful, and safe. Not perfect, but safe. And through that experience, their nervous system slowly begins to learn something new, that secure attachment does exist. That connection doesn't always have to come with fear, and that they deserve relationships where they can be fully themselves. And lastly, healing also happens in friendships, community, and relationships where people are willing to grow together. So if you're listening today and recognizing yourselves in one of these patterns, be gentle with yourself. Your attachment style isn't a flaw. It's a story your nervous system wrote to survive. And the beautiful thing about healing is that we can write new chapters. Understanding attachment helps us see ourselves and others with more compassion. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? We begin asking, what happened? And how can I heal? And that question alone can open the doors to transformation. Before we close, I also want to remind you about Lakai Within. Lakai Within is a space I created for Haitian women to slow down, reconnect with themselves, and experience healing in community. The next gathering will take place on April 14th, and if you've been looking for a space to pause, reflect, and be supported, I would love to see you there. You can find the details in the show note. Thank you for tuning in to Wapkutim Mapkutil. If this episode resonated, subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. And remember, keep prioritizing yourself, keep learning, and let's heal, grow, and thrive together.